The U.S. China trade dispute and rising geopolitical tensions have caused fluctuations in tariffs, prompting many U.S. companies to reduce their reliance on Chinese suppliers. Following General Motors, Tesla, the major electric vehicle manufacturer, is now pushing for a full-to-China shift in its supply chain. Experts believe the U.S. is preparing for a deeper economic decoupling, which will have a structural impact on China's economy. On November 15, the Wall Street Journal reported that Tesla has instructed its suppliers not to use Chinese-made components in its US-made vehicles. The company plans to reduce all Chinese-sourced materials within the next 1 to 2 years. Sources say Tesla made the decision earlier this year to stop using Chinese parts in its US-made vehicles. The decision stems from the logistical disruptions caused by China's strict lockdown measures during the pandemic. This made Tesla realize the importance of reducing dependency on Chinese suppliers. Additionally, rising tariffs due to the U.S. China trade war added uncertainty to Tesla's cost control and pricing strategies. Recent disputes between China and the Netherlands over Nexperia, a semiconductor company, have caused disruptions in chip supplies. This has intensified Tesla's urgency to further diversify its supply chain. The US remains Tesla's largest market, with all vehicles on American roads produced at local factories. Meanwhile, Tesla's Shanghai plant mainly uses locally sourced components to supply markets outside the US, including China, Asia, and Europe. In April, Reuters reported that under tariff threats, Tesla has been increasing its procurement of parts from North America for its US factories over the past 2 years. President Trump repeatedly urged automakers to build factories in the US to avoid tariffs on cars and auto parts. On November 4, 2025, Tesla struck a major deal with South Korea's energy giant, Samsung SDI, to supply energy storage batteries worth 3 trillion Korean won, which are around $2 billion US dollars. This deal caused Samsung SDI's stock price to soar by 8%. Tesla's move is seen as a crucial step in its China strategy. Historically, Tesla's energy storage batteries were almost exclusively sourced from Chinese companies. Since 2022, CATL, Contemporary Amperex Technology Company Limited, has been the sole supplier of the Megapack cells for Tesla. Currently, Tesla has stopped using CATL's lithium iron phosphate batteries in its US manufacturing operations. In addition, Tesla is working to reduce lithium iron phosphate batteries in the US. The company announced in October of last year that its lithium iron phosphate battery plant in Nevada is expected to begin production in the first quarter of 2026. Tesla's CFO, Vaibhav Taneja, stated in April that the company is focused on securing additional supply chains from non-Chinese suppliers. Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory has a localization rate exceeding 95%, and its production capacity supports nearly half of the company's global deliveries. With its operations deeply tied to China, the factory has become a focal point under rising tariff pressures, making it essential to seek alternatives outside of China. According to the China Passenger Car Association, Tesla's sales in China dropped by 35.8% year-on-year in October, reaching 26,006 units, a sharp decline from September's 71,525 units. Meanwhile, Tesla's market share in China's electric vehicle sector fell to just 3.2% in October, the lowest in 3 years, down from 8.7% in September. While Tesla's sales in China have underperformed, its export performance has been strong. Data released by the China Passenger Car Association on November 10 showed that Tesla's vehicle exports from China reached 35,491 units in October, a 2-year high. Tesla's domestic and international sales have been polar opposites, a transition that signals the growing pressure for Tesla to further reduce its reliance on China. If Tesla exits the Chinese market, it will have far-reaching effects across economic, technological, and branding dimensions. First, the economic impact. Tesla is one of the leaders in China's electric vehicle market. Its departure will significantly impact the country's new energy vehicle supply chain. As a key player in China's electric vehicle sector, Tesla has helped drive the development of upstream suppliers, such as battery, chip, and component manufacturers. It also built a vast sales and service network downstream. If Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory were to halt production, it would directly affect tens of thousands of jobs and potentially disrupt the supply chain. Second, in terms of technology, Tesla has long served as a benchmark for Chinese automakers, leading in areas such as autonomous driving, battery management systems, and vehicle software architecture. While its exit may reduce the short-term competition for domestic companies, it could weaken the channels for technological cooperation and innovation in the long run. This would lower the overall research and development efforts and diminish China's position in the global electric vehicle technology landscape, particularly with the ongoing global supply chain reshaping and heightened geopolitical tensions. This could further isolate China's technological ecosystem. Third, on branding, Tesla is one of the most recognized electric vehicle brands globally. Its presence in China has contributed to raising the overall visibility and credibility of the industry. It has also helped elevate consumer awareness of electric vehicles. If Tesla exits, it would lead to a decline in the overall brand value of China's automobile industry. Fourth, the environmental impact. Tesla's operations in China have not only promoted the electrification of vehicles, but also driven the green transformation of the entire automotive supply chain. Its high standards for battery materials, energy efficiency, and recycling systems have pushed local suppliers to improve their environmental practices and reduce carbon footprints. For example, companies like CATL and Ganfeng Lithium have accelerated the development of green mining and battery recycling technologies through their partnerships with Tesla. If Tesla exits, this environmental pressure may ease, and some companies may return to traditional high energy consumption models, potentially hindering the overall sustainable development of China's automotive industry. While Elon Musk may not completely pull out, diversification is key to survival, especially as the U.S. China trade war intensifies. Tesla is not alone in this regard. Global automakers like General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis are also making similar moves. According to Reuters' report on November 13, sources reviewed that General Motors has asked about 2,000 suppliers in mainland China to shift their supply chains outside of China by 2027. This further reinforces the trend of supply chain restructuring among U.S. automakers. General Motors initially issued the directive to some suppliers at the end of 2024, but with the escalation of the U.S. China trade war in the spring of this year, the urgency of this task has increased. Looking back, General Motors began laying the groundwork for this decision as early as 2023, particularly in areas like chips, battery materials, and rare earth elements. Since the start of the U.S.-China tech war, the chip shortage has highlighted the vulnerabilities in the global supply chain. In February 2023, GM signed a long-term agreement with U.S. chipmaker Global Foundries to reserve production capacity at its New York facility for key chip suppliers. GM has also stated that it will reduce the variety of chips used in its vehicle models and optimize designs to meet the expected surge in chip demand over the coming years. These moves reflect GM's strategy to accelerate the development of a domestic semiconductor supply chain to reduce reliance on global, particularly Asian, chips. For battery raw materials such as lithium, nickel, and cobalt, GM's solution has been to invest in and acquire local resources. In October 2024, General Motors announced a joint venture with Canadian lithium miner Lithium Americas to develop the Thacker Pass lithium mine in Nevada, with a total investment nearing $950 million. This partnership aims to secure approximately 20 years of lithium metal supply. GM executives stated that their goal is to build a reliable supply chain among Western allies in North America, including becoming a strategic partner for critical minerals when necessary. In addition, GM has signed a cobalt procurement agreement with global mining giant Glencore and invested in Australian nickel cobalt mining projects. These moves indicate GM's efforts to shift its battery raw material procurement bases to North America and allied countries, reducing reliance on China's lithium and cobalt refining supply chains. With the current uncertainty in U.S. China relations, many American companies are accelerating their efforts to de-China their operations. A significant portion of the key technologies for Ford's electric vehicle batteries also comes from Chinese suppliers. In 2023, Ford announced a partnership with CATL to build a factory in Michigan and secured a license for its lithium iron phosphate battery technology. U.S. lawmakers and government agencies expressed concerns over CATL's involvement in Ford's battery project. Members of Congress sent letters to the Department of Commerce requesting an investigation into several Chinese companies involved in the design and construction of the Michigan plant. In response to these regulatory challenges, Ford has signed agreements with North American and allied battery materials suppliers to secure its battery raw materials. Supply agreements with major lithium producers such as Albemarle in North America and SQM in Chile were reached, aimed at supporting the production of millions of electric vehicles in the future. Looking at the broader historical context, U.S. China trade tensions have steadily escalated since the trade war erupted in 2018, moving through various phases. Initially, the tariff conflict focused on traditional manufacturing products, but it gradually extended to high-tech sectors. By 2025, the trade friction has evolved into a full-scale technological and supply chain competition. The U.S. government has employed a carrot-and-stick approach, offering tax incentives and subsidies to companies that bring production back to the U.S., while imposing heavy tariffs on those that continue manufacturing in China. Under this dual pressure, American companies are being forced to reassess their supply chain strategies. In October 2022, European automaker Stellantis NV announced the end of its joint venture with Guangdong Automobile Group, which has since filed for bankruptcy. Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares cited a breakdown in trust with its partner, noting that the company had been operating at a loss in China for an extended period. Currently, Stellantis is working on regionalizing its supply chain to reduce geopolitical risks. For instance, due to potential EU tariffs, Stellantis plans to shift some electric vehicle production previously made in China with Leap Motor to its factory in Spain. Carlos Tavares has stated that China is not the only or even the best option, highlighting many alternatives in regions such as India, Mexico, and parts of North Africa and Asia. Some argue that the rise of China's new energy vehicle sector is closely tied to Tesla's investment in capital and technology, as well as its integration into China's electric vehicle supply chain. Without the introduction of American technology, China's automotive industry could not have reached its current scale and competitiveness. This is similar to how Apple brought its entire supply chain to China, which led to the emergence of Chinese brands like Huawei and Xiaomi within its ecosystem. A few years ago, Apple began a major shift in its supply chain, moving production to countries like India and Vietnam. Over the years, India has captured over 16% of global iPhone production. In the first half of this year alone, India produced 23.9 million iPhones. By 2026, it is expected that all iPhones sold in the US could be made in India. For China, this represents a significant loss in its supply chain. Apple's US market accounts for 25% to 28% of iPhone sales, worth over $100 billion. Moreover, amid tightening U.S. export controls on technology, Applied Materials, the world's largest semiconductor equipment manufacturer, announced on November 13 that its chip-making equipment spending in China is expected to decrease in fiscal year 2026 due to these restrictions. Gary Dickerson, CEO of Applied Materials, stated that due to stricter U.S. regulations, the company can no longer supply China's memory chip sector and the mature process chip manufacturing market. As a result of these export restrictions, the company's service revenue has also decreased. Applied Materials sales in China, which once accounted for nearly 40% of its revenue, have now dropped to about 25%. In addition to these technology and manufacturing companies, American firms like Starbucks, Best Buy, Yum Brands, Uber, McDonald's, Amazon, and Gap have also been selling or scaling back their operations in China. This reflects how the de-China trend has expanded from the high sector to the consumer and service industries. The wave of the China supply chain moves initiated by U.S. companies is not just a simple strategic adjustment, but rather a massive global migration affecting industries worldwide. For ordinary Chinese consumers, this not only means rising prices for products like cars and electronics, but more subtle impacts are gradually reaching them. One blogger commented,
有人说特斯拉滚出中国，德
Some people say that Tesla should get out of China and that all German, Japanese, and American cars should leave too. Do you believe it? If they really leave, you might not even be able to afford a domestic car. Don't dismiss it. If Apple were gone and those leading brands, you wouldn't even be able to buy those phones. In Iran, a liter of gasoline costs 2 to 3 yuan, but here it's 8 yuan. We should love our country and support domestic products, but China's market needs competition, balance, and most importantly, diversity. If domestic cars really monopolize the market, most of us might have to go back to riding bicycles because we'll never be able to afford a car in this lifetime. Regarding the China trend among U.S. companies, Wang Guochen, an associate researcher at the Changhua Institution for Economic Research, pointed out, taking risk reduction to the extreme is decoupling. The Biden administration focused on de-risking in the high-tech sector, but now even mineral resources are included in the de-risking process. We are currently in the process of decoupling, with both sides reducing their reliance on each other. As for the recent easing of the U.S. China trade war, Wang Guochen believes the current situation is indeed a ceasefire, but more accurately, it is preparation for war. He predicts future conflicts will only intensify and the scope of the China will expand further. Professor Sun Guoxiang of the Department of International Affairs and Business at Nanhua University analyzed that the trend of U.S. companies to China stems from the structural shift in U.S.-China relations. He listed 3 main reasons: political and ideological uncertainty leading companies to worry about unpredictable regulations, heightened geopolitical risks with increasing tensions in the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea, and the U.S. policy framework, which is broadly moving towards decoupling from China, including legislation such as the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act. Sun Guoxiang pointed out that corporate actions have proven that decoupling is real. Foreign direct investment in Vietnam, India, and Mexico has surged. Companies like Apple, Dell, and HP have shifted some production out of China, and the European Union has started adopting de-risking policies. The China is not just a political slogan, it is a reality that has already occurred in supply chains and corporate strategies. In the supply chain reshuffling battle, Sun Guoxiang believes the U.S. holds the advantage. The U.S. has successfully pushed Taiwanese, South Korean, and Japanese companies to move part of their production out of China. China is no longer the top choice for global manufacturing. In the tech war, the U.S. remains a leader in fields such as advanced process chips, artificial intelligence models, and photolithography technology. Regarding China's economic outlook, Sun Guoxiang predicts that China may be forced into an inward-focused closed economy, but this model will struggle to sustain long-term economic growth.